Rafah, where your problems are answered. Today I've got a letter here in front of me from a lady called Maggie. Now Maggie writes in to me to say that he refuses to buy a home with me, essentially is her heading. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years and recently started living together. We're both in our mid-30s. He's a lovely man in many ways. He's intelligent, loving, fun and great in bed. But I'm beginning to realise that sometimes he finds it difficult to compromise, and I often give in to him for a peaceful life. One thing I'm not prepared to compromise over though is whether to buy or rent. He's happy to continue renting the tiny flat we're in, whereas I want us to buy a house together. I know that it means paying a mortgage and that we would have less money to spend on having fun, but we can just about afford it. I feel that we need to get on the house ladder if we want a future together. Am I being unfair? She questions in her letter. Now Maggie, let me try and break it down for you firstly, and I'm going to answer the last question first, and that would be, am I being unfair? And I will be quite frank and I'll say that you're not being unfair at all. I think in all relationships we need to be able to negotiate the path of compromise, conversation, discussions and particularly communication. But I'm going to break it down somewhat, having scanned over your letter. And I want to start from the top, which is that you've been together for 2 years, which is actually quite a nice time to start thinking about your future together in a more long-term vision. But you recently actually moved in together. So your moving in together and your cohabitating has only been very recent. Now you don't say how recent, but I'm going to assume that it's been maybe less than 6 months. While it's a natural step to take forward to live together, and some people do it a lot sooner. They kind of meet up and they make a connection, and I would normally say that would happen when you're actually a lot older. And I think that people who tend to do that when they're young, you're kind of embarking on a lot of problems that will start showing up, because relationships really are an arena of self-discovery, self-evolution on a soul level, as well as growth individually and in the partnership. And you tend to find out a lot more about the partner, particularly when you get to know them over a longer period of time. And you actually make a point of this yourself by stating that you're beginning to notice and realize that he's not very good at compromising, and that you end up being the peacemaker by actually going along with what he wants more than what I guess that you might suggest, and that is in order to keep a peaceful life. Now for me that is very much key to a possible problem down the road, as you will be going along what he suggests time and time again to keep a peaceful life, and there'll be a point where you will just blow up and pop with the fact that you feel that it's been very unfair, and that essentially that he's actually been doing all the decision making, or you've been going along with him, and that is going to really bite you in the butt, because that never works out to keep a peaceful life. Being in relationships or in life is not about keeping it peaceful, although coming from a place of peace is what we really want. But at the same time, you've got to be able to be really true to honor exactly what you feel, and to be able to also have your needs met and your wants on some occasions, met for what you might like to have. And in this case, you are really adamant about you'd like to buy a home. I don't think in some way that you say in this letter that he doesn't want to buy one, but he seems to be reluctant because, you're renting a tiny flat, whereas I want us to buy a house together. So there are a lot of responsibilities that come with buying a house, and one of the benefits of buying a house, of course, is the investment, or the long-term investment, and of course the money that you pull in to your mortgage would be the money that you'll be paying towards your own investment in the long term, then paying rent to a landlord who's making money on your income. My only concern here is, but we can just about afford it. Okay, so that again, you're willing to make the sacrifice of giving up having the social life and maybe having the fun, as you put it, but possibly it could be a bit of a squeeze, and maybe that is something that your boyfriend is concerned about. My other thing is, you are in your 30s, which also informs me that, well, naturally when we get to our 30s, we may think I've noticed the camera's gone a bit blurred. You may think that that is what, and you might feel pushed as well to speed up the process of wanting to buy a place, which is really natural. I think in our 20s and 30s we've got a lot of energy, but let me tell you something from my experience and what I know to be true about life. There is plenty of time. There is more time than we think. I know there's these sayings that seem seize the moment, take life, by its reins. But there are some things sometimes that I think we can feel that we haven't made it. That we've got to be successful by a certain age. And one of the myths and the trips of life is about we have to have a house, we have to have the kids, we have to have the picket fence, and all that kind of perfect ideology that adverts tend to influence people and what we think is true. Now, none of this is true. It is only actually what is going on in your mind, because of course that is what you believe, and you clearly hit upon differences of opinion between him not being in a hurry to buy somewhere and you are. All right, my other thing I would want to bring to your attention is that here you say, I feel we need to get on the housing ladder if we want a future together. Now that I also feel to be a myth, because you are falling into the trap of believing that in order to have a future with him, that you're going to have to get on the housing ladder. And I can assure you that there's plenty of people who's not bought into buying a house, or actually putting the idea that if you don't have a house that you've bought together, that there is no future between you. Now that is a whole lot of rubbish, really. You can have a future together. It is the commitment and the decision to be together that makes a relationship, and not buying the house any more than not getting married and somebody being disputive about the marriage, or not getting married means that their relationship is null and void. I do understand that for some people there are certain value systems that's very important, and for some people a deal breaker could be that, well, if I don't get married, I don't want to be with you, or if you don't want to get married to me, then I don't want us to be together. I don't feel that to be the case at all. But I want to look at the chakra system, because this is one area that maybe can help you navigate this terrain of this confusion, and whether you're being unfair or not. Like I said, you're not being unfair. But if we look at the chakra system here, we've got a line of, in fact, let me do this in black. We've got a line here that starts from the bottom, which goes that way to the top. Okay, so we've got the crown chakra here, we've got the third eye chakra here, we've got the throat chakra, and we've got the heart. The solar plexus is to do with your willpower and your power. This is to do with your creativity and your self-confidence. And this is the root chakra, which is to do with your security. Now, in this instance, I feel that your security is being threatened. You feel that you don't have any sense of base or security unless you have what you feel to be very much your solid foundation. Now, the solid foundation really comes from the inner sense, which is your root chakra. I would, in fact, just going to take all these off as well. So stick to the root chakra for a moment. Now, because you feel the need to have a root chakra, your security and your survival seems to be based on this house, which is actually causing a lot of anxiety and also a lot of hopelessness and a sense of concern, and your energy is being ungrounded right now. And in order to strengthen your grounding, you need to believe that your security doesn't come from anything external. A house is not going to secure your relationship with your partner, and that goes for anything or anyone in any matter. While money, for example, is important for our security and our survival, again, you can actually have very little money or might have very slight income for certain times of life, but you and yourself can feel quite secure. So it's not the external factor that's the issue, it's actually the internal factor that's the issue. Now, if we also look at the sacral chakra, which is here, right in the pelvic area of one's body, there's an emotional imbalance clearly here, where you possibly feel that your needs are not being met. There's a sense of lack of confidence, and a sense of dependence, that perhaps you're feeling that you need to depend on your partner to be able to get on board and also feel that without the support, that again your relationship is being threatened. Now, you don't really state that you feel it's being threatened by, while I understand that you really want to take the relationship to the next step, I feel that basing it around your age and basing it around the fact that you recently moved in, perhaps giving it some more time and maybe putting a time parameter, maybe giving it another year or 6 months in the rental game, is not going to make a huge difference to possibly where you're at now. And perhaps that's something you really want to discuss with your partner. And I'm going to bring your throat chakra here. I feel that you really need to sit down honestly and have a conversation and set the stage for a conversation where he doesn't feel threatened, or you don't want to be interrupted either, and express that this is something that you need to speak about, and could you have the space to be able to express why it is important for you. The importance I can see here is because so you can have a future together, but I don't really feel that that is a good enough reason for you to feel that you have to have a house or get on the housing ladder. In terms of investment, yes, property markets tend to go up and down, but that's a gamble that we all take, that's a risk we all take. So really, in terms of timing, and instead of looking at this on more of a spiritual perspective and a broader perspective, perhaps you need to trust that your home will always be out there waiting for you, and the perfect home will be there where you can perhaps buy into a property with your partner at the right time. Now, if this is a stalemate situation currently, rather than giving in and compromising, you can set a parameter as to maybe you can review the situation in about 6 months, and perhaps also allow yourself to explore the living together situation. How does that feel for you? And how is that starting to build up? Because a relationship without necessarily with a marriage still will bring up a lot of dynamics where there's differences between the two of us. Yeah, and in fact, relationships are often based by differences. You know, we tend to attract our opposites. You know, one person could be very frugal and the other person could be a spendthrift. The other one more cautious and the other one is always risking things. And that's where the dynamic and the fun and the adventure of the relationship really enters. And allowing ourselves to know when we're giving in too much, or maybe when we need to really sort of empower ourselves to actually command or take command of a situation, which also then brings me to the solar plexus here. The solar plexus, I feel, between your partner, the connection here perhaps needs to be equalized because you tend to compromise quite a bit. And I feel that in some way, perhaps you're allowing his to be more dominant than yours. So I'd really be looking at your power here. Now, people who might be following my vlogs regularly, this is one of the biggest issues that I find time and time again, particularly with women, but also, you know, people can sometimes be over dominant, and that also needs tapering in and rebalancing. On the heart level, I feel that you are well connected, clearly. You both enjoy yourselves, you find him intelligent, you know, that's your kind of the mental realm. You find the sexual realm, the physical realm satisfying. You obviously have some fun, which is really great, which is very important to have fun and laughter in a relationship. And also you find him interesting, which is very important, and loving, which I think are very key ingredients. You know, a lot of people might be listening to this. If you haven't got these areas in your relationship, you might need to review these areas, or think that maybe you're not in a particularly a good relationship. Because if you can't trust your partner or meet on a heart level where you're feeling nurtured and loved by, and equally giving love, then it is going to be an uphill struggle or a downhill spiral. Okay, so let me see, is there anything else I need to really add? Another main chakra that I might actually want to introduce to you here, which will help you to strengthen this situation by meditating or visualizing on the color and doing some mantras, which are always on my video, which you'll find the link below for. That will help to strengthen any of these issues. And one of the other issues that I really feel that you could possibly really think about is maybe your thoughts, okay? Because I feel that your thoughts, which is a third eye, which is where we do our thinking, is what's tripping you up. You think that you can't have a future together unless you buy a house. Now, that is not true. That is possibly a myth that you've bought into, that you are hooking yourself into, which is also causing you a lot of distress and unhappiness, in a sense, if you keep on badgering him about it, okay? And badgering your mental state around it, thinking, well, if I don't have this house, then this is not going to work, okay? That is also sabotaging a genuine, good relationship here. So I feel that in some way, by actually working on your third eye, which is here, that you will find that your thoughts will become more positive. You will release any form of old school judgments, which also relates down to some tribal law. We tend to pick up these from our society. Okay, so let's have a look. This is all the societal things that we learn from society, from families. From families and old school tribal belief systems. Okay, there are things that perhaps you were educated to believe, that in order to become maybe in order to take your life seriously, you have to have a house, right? There are pros and cons for everything, but that is not how life is factored. And that is also you, possibly in your case right now, setting yourself up for a bit of a disappointment because you feel that that's not where he wants to go. My advice to you, Maggie, would be take it step by step. I would suggest that you put a time parameter of 6 months, maybe a year maximum, but definitely review the situation in 6 months' time, and perhaps take a step back from discussing the need of having to move or wanting to buy a house at this point. Definitely continue to save your money to be able to afford a mortgage and what have you. So continue with your plans, but I wouldn't force the issue. And perhaps in the meantime, you might recognize that actually you can still be very happy together in a committed relationship, which I feel that you are, and actually work towards a future together that may work for you, because life is full of unexpected changes, and in some way, if you just surrender the situation right now, you might find that you can come to a place of equilibrium again and enjoy your partner, and basically see, as long as you don't let it go end up in arguments, why don't you try and maybe spend the time, the rest of the sort of 6 months period, where you can enjoy each other again, put the money away, and state the fact that you will review the situation when the time is right, in 6 months' time. But if it's more than that, then maybe you need to really review your relationship with him and maybe have move on. But I don't think, sometimes we can get pushed to the edge and we find that it's not so much compromising, but I would say it's a process of allowing to go with a situation. Yes, these factors really come in when you actually want children, or also when there are these life momentous steps that we want to take and maybe a partner is not ready to do so. But definitely keep the conversation going. Find out if there's anything that maybe has him stalling. Maybe he's afraid, perhaps his parents got divorced. You don't say that. Maybe they've split up and maybe the house had to be split. So there could be other deeper issues that is having him not be willing to take that step right now. But I would take it step by step, enjoy what you've got together, and then work on your inner chakras to help you through this time, so you can actually feel at peace and feel vibrant and see what happens, and maybe get back to me in 6 months' time and see that where you've moved on from. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. This is for anybody who might find that this is when you actually want something in a partnership and you're not actually meeting in the middle. Trust that sometimes just by good communication, again in the throat area, would really help. But I'm very keen personally on this issue to work with the third eye chakra. Your heart space is fine. The solar plexus for empowering yourself to stay in your power, but actually also not being over dominant and maybe matching it with him in the compromising level. Speak to your sense of self with personal inner confidence and creativity, right? And so you don't also get feeling that you are left out in the cold. Very important for keeping emotional balance going. And your root chakra, which is where your security and your belief systems right now are trapped into. Don't worry, you can have your sense of security without having the external needs, and you'll find that you can feel secure in yourself, secure in the relationship, that will help you to sustain and continue on the path of love. Thanks a lot. Now, if you want to look at the Vimeo clips, or rather the Vimeo links down below. And you'll find a card reading also, which I'll do for you, Maggie, expressing, or let's have a look to see what the cards say and reveal about this situation. It's always interesting whether the cards match my advice or the cards have something else to impart. And for anybody listening, in watching, this is also an opportunity for you to see if that you're in the same space, that perhaps you can gain some insight through the cards as well as my advice. Thanks for watching. This is Ask Rafah, where your problems are solved.